Let's throw our hands in the air as we soar through the sky.
Yatta!
We'll catch the sun with your hand in mine, and if we work as a team, everything will be fine.
Yeah!
Oh, it's Cure of the What Now?
Let's henshin and start the show!
Hello, fellow moviegoers, and welcome to episode 22 of Cure of the What Now, the only show where we know stealing people's dreams by force is maybe a bit of a bad idea.
Show me the evidence.
I'm your host, Kat, and I am a miracle flower that blooms inside your heart.
Wonderful, wonderful. I am the co-host Joel. I am your friendly neighborhood scientist MILF, and also, of course I know what day tomorrow is, but I'm too busy trying to save my daughter to spend time with my daughter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if I spend time with my daughter if she's dead. She
That's
needs
true.
to be alive. It would be better if she were alive and we never saw each other.
That is a better alternative to grieving over the loss of a moon fairy child.
Yes, so as indicated in our intro and also probably a description for this episode, Tropical Rouge PreCure is on break this week. So Joel and I, we met up in the old podcast studio and tried to figure out what we could cook up for y'all, and we decided to watch the Healin Good standalone movie.
Yeah, and I've seen the title translated a couple of different ways, but it's basically like Yes Precure 5 and Healin Good visit the Dream City of Dreams. And
it was like, let's GoGo to the City of Dreams or something.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I meant when I said I saw different translations. There seems to be a couple of puns in there based off of who's translating, and some people focus on the Yes Precure 5 pun in there and that sort of thing.
So we also did watch our episode of Futari Wa, and Joel got ahead of the game. He cheated. He watched 2 episodes of Cure PreCure a la mode, so we will still discuss those. But first, do you have a discussion question for me this week?
Now, we started this podcast with Tropical Rouge, but we actually started watching week to week the new series with Healin Good. So my question to you, in honor of this movie, what would your fairy animal companion be?
Now, I feel like this is kind of an unfair question, because if there wasn't already a cat companion in the show, like, I'd just go with cat. But I'm probably going to have to say either like fox or wolf.
Fox or wolf? Okay. Yeah,
I
very
think
nice.
many people went through a wolf-obsessed phase as children. I went through a phase where not only was I obsessed with wolves, so, reading all the nonfiction books, but also I thought I was one for a while. I had like a spirit form that was a wolf, so nobody could see it, but I could henshin into my wolf form.
Okay, you know what? That makes sense. Very Twilight Princess of you. Yeah.
I was briefly very into Power Rangers, and so the transforming into my wolf form actually did involve like a Power Rangers style henshin pose.
Very nice, very nice. Now, I think that otters are kind of cute. I picked monkeys kind of randomly as a kid as my favorite animal, but I couldn't say why. But thinking about it with my kind of element preference being fire and me being a bit hot-headed sometimes, I'm thinking maybe like a salamander or something like that would be kind of cool.
I like that. I could also see just a little peacock for you, like something colorful and expressive.
Okay. I was about to say, I'm not that focused on my looks, which is what I associate peacocks with, but I like bright colors. That's absolutely true.
Absolutely. What color would your animal companion be?
I mean, I guess in PreCure logic, it should be some kind of like a bright color. I was thinking like a dark color, dark brown or something for the lizard. But if I had to pick a bright color, like an orange, maybe that could be like their underbelly would be like this bright neon orange.
It would be like the rough skin newt we found that one time.
Yes.
Gosh, those are so cool. Anyway.
That sounds like we were up to illicit activities, like we were doing a thing and we saw a newt. You remember that time? You remember that time.
I just didn't want to derail the podcast talking about the cool animals we found.
Of course.
Anyway, mine would be purple.
Okay.
I'd have like a little purple fox.
Wait, consider, Yeah, your horoscope sign is water based, isn't it?
No,
Oh,
Aquarius is an air sign.
Even though it has the word aqua in it. Okay, my point was you could also have an axolotl as your spirit animal, and it could also be purple.
I love that. Axolotl.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, I presume that I shall be giving the succinct summary.
Yes, I think that would be most quaint of you, darling.
All right. So the Healin Good girls, along with Nodika's mom, are going to Tokyo to experience this thing. It's like the Dream On event. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but there's like a thing going on. There's a hot new scientist, and I mean that as the double entendre. But she has invented this technology that allows you to like create dreams into reality, basically. You put on a ring, you think real hard, and the thing you think about appears, and you can actually physically touch these things, you can eat it if it's food, that kind of a thing, and they're just having a good time.
Do you think there are calories in the dream food?
I don't think so. I'm guessing that it's probably just stimulating the taste rather than the actual, okay. Do you have to use the bathroom if you eat too much? Can you eat food that you're allergic to or will have the same reaction? I don't know.
Does it depend on the user's intention? Like, can you purposefully think, I want delicious cake that tastes just like cake but doesn't have any calories and doesn't make me have to poop? Or can you just say, I want a cake and all of that is kind of wrapped up?
How much time does the Dream On sequence have to prepare? No. So they go to this place. They meet this idol girl who is sort of like the pop star that's known in the city.
Before they find out she's an idol, Latte runs up to her because her heart flower is crying. And she's like, you better get out of this city. It's going to be bad. And then she disappears. So
my question is, are we reading word for word the long summary on the Wikipedia page, or are we giving a succinct summary?
We're giving a succinct summary. I just thought that was an important element.
Okay. Nodika meets this girl, Latte leads Nodika to this girl, and they're like, oh man, you're cool, and then she leaves, and then later that night, she's at this idol event, and Hinata recognizes her in her idol outfit, getup, or whatever, whereas Nodika seemed to meet her in street clothes. And then a monster shows up and it absorbs the dream of one of the people in the crowd, and the girls start fighting, but then the monster multiplies and there's 10 of them, and there's no way that 4 people could beat 10 people. And so if only there were 6 more people who could help them out, and the Yes Precure 5, consisting of 6 members, show up in order to help them. The Yes Precure 5 team just knows who the Healin Good team are. They're like, hey, you're the Healin Good team. Sweet. And then they run off to go chase the bad guy after they successfully save the girl. The girls get called the next day and they're told, hey, don't worry about it. We, the Yes Precure 5 team, took care of the bad guy, but secretly, it's Hot Professor Lady who has like a voice-changing thing. She's captured Coco and Nuts, as well as the Yes Precure 5 team. She's absorbing their heart dream flowers, whatever they're called. And that's kind of basically it. At the end of the movie, it's revealed that this girl, whose name she's Kaguya. She's named after the Japanese folktale. But Kaguya is the hot professor's child, but she's also a fairy and she's adopted, and the scientist lady is trying to gather all of the dreams of the people in the city for nefarious purposes, but actually good purposes. But then the monster turns on her and they have to team up and defeat it, and that's your succinct summary.
It's a beautiful succinct summary, and I've got a song.
Yeah?
Science MILF is doing a crime. Look out, it's Science MILF.
Now, if you haven't seen this movie for some reason, but you are familiar with My Hero Academia, she looks like a slightly less sexualized Midnight.
That's who I was thinking of the whole time. I think the specific style of her glasses.
Her hair is the same color.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's a device that's used across like that character archetype. And so Midnight also falls into that archetype. So babe, imagine this for a second. Her daughter walks up to her and is like, tomorrow's my birthday. And she says, I can't spend your birthday with you. I'm busy doing hot girl shit. I'm busy doing hot mom shit.
Sweetie, you're almost 14. It's time for you to have your own friends. Just go and throw your own birthday party. Jeez Louise.
Clingy much?
Yeah, look at this luxurious mansion. Just put it on the credit card.
Did you enjoy this movie?
I really liked Kaguya, yeah, and the fight animations for the final battle was pretty good. I have some complaints, but overall, yeah, I think this was a pretty good movie, and I'd rather get into like my more specific gripes in a second. How did you like it?
Yes! I was really excited when I heard that this movie was going to be a crossover, and I was disappointed in how present the Yes 5 team was. Or should I
because
say
they took too much screen time? Oh, no.
No, they were not present hardly at all. I feel like this movie would have almost been a perfect standalone movie if it had just been the Healin Good team. I don't think it was necessary for the S5 girls to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. You could have had Kaguya realizing that her mom had been capturing random people, abducting random people, and it would have had the same impact, I think. She was looking for people with very specific heart dreams, which of course all of the PreCure girls do, but yeah, they seemed like an afterthought almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she could have even kidnapped like Hinata.
Oh, sure.
Or one of the Healin Good members. But no, overall, I really, really enjoyed it. Kaguya was adorable. I liked the little monster, Ego.
No, so he did pronounce it Ego in the Japanese. We watched the sub. It's not out dubbed, I don't think. And it might never be dubbed unless by fans. But it's clearly the word ego. And it's all about selfishness versus selflessness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just the way that the Japanese pronounce vowels, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
So, he was just real cute. He was a little fox with like a little flower bud for a tail.
Yeah.
And then eventually he was like a dryad nymph man because he absorbed Kaguya. That was bizarre.
Yeah, his final form was strange. It seems like there's almost a requirement that the final form has to be humanoid. Even King Biogen or Pathogerm or whatever you want to call him, he had a humanoid final form even though he was clearly an evil unicorn. Now, if I could get more specific into my gripes, the thing that I don't like so much is the most movies, the main team will get a new form, and this movie has a partner form, I think it was called, where the Healin Good girls touch the heart paws of their partners, and they get kimonos, and then features that resemble their animals, some more than others, but, Sparkle has a cat tail and cat ears, and Grace has rabbit ears, and Earth has kind of like puppy ears, that kind of thing. But there's the theme of this movie did not seem to be about partners. If Kaguya and her mom had been partners, but they drifted apart and she could no longer touch her mom's heartbeats or whatever, and then these girls came along and they had a healthier relationship, I think that would go a lot further to developing kind of the theme.
I think there's two things that you could be overlooking here. So the first is that the relationship between the Healin animals and the PreCure was kind of central to the plot of Healin Good PreCure, and it's one of the things that I didn't actually have any complaints about when I was watching that series, because we're famously a little critical, I would say. But there's that, and then the other thing is if you watch that scene, the Healin animals are all tied up, but it's their desire to save their friends that allows them to break out, and so that leads to, like, them fusing because they all have one purpose together.
They're united in their goals. Okay, that makes sense.
So I think the overall theme of the movie was really about wanting to do things for other people, and that being the most powerful kind of dream.
Absolutely. That makes sense, and the way that they save Kaguya, so the real reason that the professor, I think her name was like Gonchouin or something like that, Dr. Gonchouin, but what she was trying to do is she was trying to gather enough hopes and dreams of the people in order to make this special flower bloom that could grant any wish, and her wish was going to be to save Kaguya. But the reason Kaguya was dying was because she asked to use Kaguya's power for the machine that would help the flower bloom. So it was That's a little strange to me. It was a little circular, and I think that they were going for she did something without realizing the repercussions and then was trying to undo it because she loved her daughter. But that's how they played it off, as her being like, I have this selfish dream. I'm going to collect all of the heart flowers no matter what it takes because I need it for a selfless reason.
Yeah, her original goal was to make everybody's dreams come true, and she was using Kaguya to do that. And then she was like, "Oh no, I'm killing her. I have to use the power of other people's dreams to protect her."
Right. Oh, but anyways, I guess my point was at the end of the movie, it looks like Kaguya is going to pass away because they use the power of dreams to defeat the bad guy, and that used up the last of her strength. But then Grace is able to basically spirit bomb all of the city's energy into Kaguya, and now she's back. Minus her dream powers, but she gets to live a normal life with her mom, so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say one other thing I appreciated about this movie was that we got to see the Tropical Rouge girls at the very end. There was a little dumb short, and nothing happened in it, but it was humorous as heck to watch. It reminded me of those old Looney Tunes shorts.
Absolutely, or like the Pixar shorts kind of a thing. So it's basically... for the sake of having this short be short, apparently the Healin Good girls just know the Tropical Rouge girls exist and are like, hey, come party with us. And then the girls are trying to go to this place where they're going to dance, and they get attacked by Yarnadas, and they fall from the sky because the plane they were in was a Yarnada, and it just kind of dumps them out over the ocean. And they're trying to fight, but Summer almost drowns, but then she gets to triumphantly get a piggyback ride from Laura, and then is launched into the air. And then they end up on the island, and they do the Healin Good closing and the Tropical Rouge closing, but now with both teams, with Tropical Rouge and Healin Good.
Yes, so we did get a teeny tiny bit of Minatsu's Genki energy today. Do you have anything else you want to say about this movie?
Not particularly. Like you said while we were watching this movie, and like you commented on about the Yes Precure 5 girls being there, so they get captured, and then the Healin Good girls save them by having such powerful feelings it overloads the computer, and also Kaguya sends her spirit whale into the computer. But then, during the final fight, they're basically, like, the Healin Good girls are using, like, their super ultra mega forms, and they're, like, shooting lightning and ice and wind and stuff. And then the Yes Precure 5 girls kind of, like, all attack at once, and they just they do some punches and some kicks, and it's like, why are you even here?
Hello, we're here. And I just want to throw out there, I really think the Heartcatch girls would have been a good choice for this movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the flower buds inside people's hearts is taken directly from Heartcatch. And also the themes of, like, selflessness versus selfishness, like, I think that ties into Heartcatch pretty well.
Absolutely. Joel, do you want to talk about Futari Wa next, or Kira Kira?
Let's talk about the talking dog. Because that's the thing that happened, and my life has not been the same since.
The talking dog in the room. Do dogs often talk to you? Do the dogs tell you to do things? No, so this episode of Futari Wa was about Honoka's dog Chutaro, discovering a puppy and deciding he's going to care for this puppy. And then when Nodoka and Nagisa... when Honoka and Nagisa finally discover it, they help Chutaro to find the owner. But then Chutaro and this puppy just talk to each other. And, like, the whole episode is almost from Chutaro's perspective. Like, they walk in on the PreCure battling the bald guy. And
Ilkumo, something like that.
The puppy leans over and is like, oh, is that your master? And Chutaro's like, no, I would call her my friend.
At the end of the episode, when the puppy is reunited with its owners, who moved, by the way, that's why he was separated from them. And there's a final scene where the humans are saying, like, oh, we'll come visit. And the little kid's like, oh my gosh, come bring your dog. And then there's the puppy being like, oh, come back, Chutaro. And Chutaro's like, have a good day, youngin', or something like, you know, like, it was a very strange, just out of nowhere kind of thing. At least in Fresh, they had the decency to explain why one of the characters could talk to animals.
I liked it, though. I appreciated it a lot, and I loved Chutaro, like, being angry at Nagisa for messing with his puppy.
Yes, I love that so much. The title confused me. Because the episode title is Chutero's going to be a mom. First off, I didn't remember that the dog was named Chutero. But then, even in the episode, they explicitly point out that Chutero is a male dog. And Nagisa even's like, did Chutero have puppies? And I was like, no, he's a male dog. So I thought it was funny that the episode title was also kind of...
Yes, well, and then Nagisa made a joke about Chutero being like a deadbeat dad, which seemed really out of place for a children's show, but it made me laugh.
Yes, absolutely. No, I did really like this episode, and I mean, any episode with the dog, and especially if the dog, no harm comes to the dog, that's a win in my book, but it did feel a little strange, because we just went to Kiria basically sacrificing himself to the darkness and realizing that his life was going to end and he was powerless to stop the chains of fate, to... oh, my dog's acting kind of funny, here's a puppy.
Well, I was actually going to comment on that. I think that something Precure does really well as a series is they follow up their moments of serious with moments of levity. Like, they give you a chance to breathe in between the hard-hitting stuff. Whereas, like, a show like Madoka Magica, once the sad starts, the sad never stops.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun in there past, episode 3. Madoka Magica is my favorite show. Don't come for me.
Absolutely. No, I do agree. I wasn't expecting it. And then at the end of the episode, Il Kubo, if that's his name, does show up, and then he's kind of like, I'm going to be evil. And then there's some bigger plot going on, and again, Kat and I haven't ever seen Futari Wa, so I have no idea, but it seems like there's something about this Guardian of the Stones, whose real name is Wisdom, and Il Kubo seems to know something about that, so it looks like we're heading into final arc territory, except I know that there's another 28 episodes, so as we've said before... like, either the previous bad guys are going to be reincarnated into stronger forms, or there's just going to be, like, a bigger, badder guy who's going to be like, I've been hanging out in the shadows this whole time. I'm here to wreck stuff. I don't know why I didn't show up for the first 23 episodes.
Yeah, so look, this episode was about Chutero having puppies, or being a mom despite being a boy dog. So obviously... the next episode, to continue on the filler train, will be about Nagisa's younger brother becoming a mother.
Ah, yeah, of course. That makes much more sense.
Absolutely. Kira.
So now you took a pot shot at me, kind of, I guess. It could be construed as such, where you said that I cheated and I watched more episodes than was allotted. Now, when I first made the promise to watch at least one episode of Kira for every episode of Tropical Rouge, that was just so that I didn't, like, put it off, and then 3 years from now, I'm like, oh, how come I never watched past episode 9? But this show is really good. You hyped it up on our bonus episode. Check out our Patreon if you want full access to all 6-7 hours of us talking about it. But there's just something about it and Star Twinkle. It's not just that those were our first series respectively. Like, the writing is actually just that good in those series. So, in short, Julio has shown up and he's going to try and cause havoc. But then we find out that he's actually the brother of Ciel. And then we find out that he turned to darkness because he was jealous of her and felt like she didn't love him, which sends her into a spiral of negativity. But then they work through it together. They overcome the darkness. Julio seems to sacrifice his life in order to allow Ciel to finish her transformation because, surprise, Ciel is the 6th Ranger. She is Cure Parfait. These episodes were really good. As when you said Julio sacrificed himself in our bonus episode, my immediate thought was, this is Precure. They don't usually do death. Little did I know, they actually have had a couple of permadeaths in previous seasons. But I can't see Julio being gone. That seems... What's the opposite of fridging? Like, I guess, is it still fridging someone if it's a man who gets destroyed?
No.
Okay.
Well, so fridging is a complicated trope, but it's basically someone dies in a horrific way. Like, it's grotesque for the sole purpose of upsetting this person.
So Julio, Rio, slash, what's his other Curio?
Picario.
He's too well fleshed out to be a fridge character, but I feel like there's more you could do with the character arc between him and his sister, she and her brother, than just he was stabbed by darkness. So I could imagine them trying to find some way to bring him back, perhaps with the best goddamn cookies that anyone's ever baked.
How did you feel about him just being a nasty little fairy? Don't hug me, I'm a villain!
Oh, man. As a reminder, I do have a Twitter thread where I try to comment on each episode as I'm watching them, and I loved him trying to be all big and tough and emo-y when he's this cute little fairy, and Owie is just, like, carrying him around and he can't get out.
Like he's her little plushie.
Yeah, it's like when, like, a 4-year-old tries to act tough. For the most part, usually it's just kind of like,
Now, these episodes had what I think is the most powerful line in all of PreCure.
Okay.
Would you like to share it, or should I?
I will build the suspense. I will lead up to it.
Okay.
So, he's not Darknest.
Noir-sama.
Noir-sama. So apparently he can just sense when someone's having a really bad day, like a really, really bad day, and he shows up and he doesn't offer to make it better. What he does is he plunges you into a world of darkness so that you may serve Noir-sama. And Ichika and Julio end up going inside of the darkness inside her heart, I guess. They don't like explicitly explain it, but in there she's depressed, and the reason she's depressed, by the way, is because Julio accused her of ignoring her or not ever like noticing him, and so she blames herself. And the only way that they can fix it is for Julio to do something. And while he's working on that, Ciel's, like, dark self tries to attack with shadow tendrils or something like that. And so, of course, Ichika transforms, she jumps in the way, and she prepares to defend him so he can finish this vital task. And she turns to him, and she says...
She yells, "Finish those waffles!" as she's blocking Dark Ciel's attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the most dramatic reading of a silly sentence I have ever heard, and I'm super into it.
It is all very interesting, and this only works in a series like Cure Parfait a la mode. But, so I have heard that Julio is referred to as Cure Waffle, or people have petitioned for him to be Cure Waffle. And for the longest time, I didn't quite get it, because I just didn't know how often he made waffles, but it turns out his tragic backstory is waffles all the way down.
Pecorine likes donuts, Ichika likes shortcakey,
yeah.
He likes waffles.
So the longer version is basically he made waffles one time, and his sister ate them and was like, wow, these are delicious. Then he tried making them later, but they turned all black and bad, and she was like, man, these aren't very good. Or she says, these aren't as good as the ones you made me that time, and that's kind of what starts his descent, and that's how he brings her back, is because he decides to cook these waffles and put his feelings into them. We found out that apparently he can't cook anything. His hands are stained in the sins of the father and that sort of thing. But he tries one last time to get through to speak his feelings, and she eats the waffle this time, even though it is black and crumbly, but she still's like, oh man, it's delicious. And apparently his own perception of his skills was what caused them to be negative. So now that he's gotten over that, he's back to normal. And when she's about to transform, she decides to use his waffles as part of her ensemble, and those become the wings of the Pegasus.
Now, one of my favorite things about Ciel is she's kind of a self-absorbed little goblin.
Sure.
She mostly does whatever she wants, and she's better than other people, and she knows it. And so she overcomes the darkness in her heart. The love that Picario has for her and for baking comes through in his waffles, and that shakes her out of it. And he tells her, do whatever you want. And she says, okay, and becomes PreCure. And I just love that was all that it took.
Yeah. It is interesting. The way you described it, it felt much more like a slow burn, but actually watching it, it literally is just like, you should dress however you want, like, do what's best for yourself in the moment. And she goes, all right, henshin sequence. You're like, what? Whoa, I think we're missing a step here or there.
Absolutely. So you wrote down in your notes, you wanted to discuss whether or not you felt it made sense for her henshin suite to have been made by somebody else.
Yeah, because, so her transformation, she's Cure Parfait. With the other 5 girls that we've had so far, they all baked the sweet that they would later become their keepsake. Shortcake, gelato, custard, or pudding, as it is, chocolate, and macarons. And so I understand why Ciel's arc is multiple episodes. She's the special ranger and that sort of thing. And it was a very powerful moment, don't get me wrong. But she doesn't really end up baking anything that becomes her thing. And so I don't know how I feel about this.
Well, you'll remember that Aoi and Akira did not bake their own sweets. Ichika made them for them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so the sweet she made for Akira, for example, was filled with Akira's love for her sister and Ichika's fondness for Akira. And then the gelato that she made for Aoi was filled with her admiration for Aoi's spirit. And so I think it's more the feelings in the sweet, and if the person is able to receive those feelings and decide to protect those feelings, that's what makes them a precure.
Okay, yeah, and Ichika's shortcake in the first episode was so important because it was for her mom, so that makes much more sense. I just kept thinking of it as they had to have their own emotional revelation, whereas in this case, it felt like Julio had a moment of revelation, and then Ciel stole it from him. No boys allowed, pushes him into the pool, and becomes the prom queen.
Have you ever heard how in the womb, usually one twin will be a little pushier than the other twin and like get more nutrients and be born larger?
I guess so.
Ciel is that twin.
She's the larger twin.
Like, I absolutely agree that those waffles should have been his henshin item.
Absolutely.
But no, it was because the feelings put into them were for her. She was able to use them. And she was making a parfait out of Kirikiriru. Like, she was assembling her own, but it needed that special animal touch that she's learned from Ichika.
Yeah.
And that's when she goes like, hey, can I use the waffles you made for me? And he was like, I already told you to do whatever you want. Use the fucking waffles. I don't give a care. And so she used them to make her Pegasus wings.
You know, absolutely. And it's fantastic. And, so for those of you who have not seen Kira all the way through, which again I assume is not most of you, I assume most of you have seen most seasons of Precure, but notice that at one point Norisama appears and Biberi is like, let me prove my love to you and defeat the Precure here, now give me more of your power, master. And he goes, only love me. And right now, that's just kind of a standalone sentence, and it does speak to Lord Noir's desire to control. But that line, as Kat pointed out to me, is symbolic for a later scene that is much more interesting. Yeah,
it's some good character foreshadowing. I really feel like we got some solid tweets in a bottle this week.
We did.
They are all from James, that one welder guy on Twitter. But I love this first one. Look, Picario, they're just waffles. No need to turn evil over waffles. Listen, James, he wasn't turning evil over waffles. He was turning evil over his powerful admiration for his sister, who was turning her back on him, who was so far out of his reach, despite him, extending his hand toward her. He also said, Noir really said, get in the vor puppet, Biberi.
Yes, because the aforementioned him lending her power, she becomes absorbed by the vor puppet. And it's basically, if you've seen Gleipnir, it's that.
There's a scene of her piloting it, and there's like the meat of it around her. And I tweeted that picture with new season of Gleipnir looks great.
Now, when you say the meat, it's just the fluff, but it perfectly mirrors the darker tones of that other show. And yeah, no, it's interesting. It seems like if you use Julio's arc as a template for future villains, Biberi's probably on her way out, because it was only when Julio put his own Cure rune or Cure All into his schemes that he was taken out for good. And now we have seen Biberi do that twice, and she is getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And in a show like PreCure, that's not a good look.
Absolutely. So at this point, what would you assume was going to be the next step for the villains? If he loses Biberi and he loses Julio, as far as we know, that's everyone he has.
I honestly have no idea. I have future knowledge of like what happens next, and I get the impression that the answer is it's just two bigger guys who are standing in the shadows being like, all right, now it's our turn to step in. Kind of like how Biberi was already serving Master Noir, but we didn't meet her until she showed up. But if I had to guess, Julio is doing research on how to make Cure All stronger, so Biberi's final battle, because she's not done yet, will in some way advance their technique for creating evil villains, and then whoever else shows up is going to take that and incorporate it into their fighting style. Alternatively, if Master Noir only has the two servants and they're both defeated now, I could imagine an episode or maybe an arc where he's like running around the town and trying to find people who are having a really bad day and trying to darkness vortex them. And maybe like for the first couple of episodes, Ichika and the others manage to save them just in time before they turn evil. But maybe it accumulates in him finding the perfect servant of darkness, after like 3 or 4 failed attempts. And this person is like, I want to be evil. I don't have a sister I'm angry at. I just hate the world.
Okay. I like that a lot. I do want to draw attention to one quote from Ichika that we didn't actually write down, but I think is really powerful. She tells Rio that hatred is just another aspect of love. So she's like, you don't hate your sister, you love your sister, and your love for your sister was so overpowering when you didn't feel as though those feelings were returned that you gave into hatred. And like, that's a really interesting take, and without getting into foreknowledge too much, I think that that's, again, really good foreshadowing for kind of where this series goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's true, right? The more you admire someone or like someone or love someone, the harder it hits if there's a breakup or they say that they're donezo or whatever the case may be, right? So yeah, I think that's very interesting. And as the Ivanhoe pointed out in his article about Kira, this whole season is about liking things and your emotions, and so it makes sense that the bad guys would be people who maybe went a little weird with their likes, liking something too much or liking something that doesn't like you back in that sort of way.
Absolutely. We do have one more thought from James that I'd love to get your take on. He says that Ciel's transformation and the entire fight scene was chef's kiss, is how he wrote it. I'm not going to make the kissing sound because I think editor Joel wouldn't like it. Did you like her transformation and the fight? Yeah,
it was great. The only thing that I kind of hoped for, every once in a while, PreCure will... A lot of times PreCure is just kind of like basic punching or kicking and whatever, but every once in a while they'll get to like Dragon Ball Z levels of like making my inner teenager go like, woo! I kind of wish that as she was flying around that she had knocked the bad guy up into the air and then flipped up and then knocked them back to the ground. And she does briefly do that. She does like an attack where it's like a falling star meteor shower type of attack, but I would have preferred if she had like flown like way up into space and then just drop kicked the thing back into a crater.
Absolutely. I love that she summons a rainbow that the other girls can run on.
Yes.
That seems really useful for future fights.
I do wonder if it will stick around for future fights, but yes, that is an interesting ability. I like that so much. And that has been your
Final thought.
Outro goes here. Thanks for listening, everyone, and don't forget to Tropica-Shine.
Bye!
Ha-ha! What a great episode of King of the What Now, your One Piece podcast that started from the very beginning and stars these two doofuses. If you want to follow us on social media, Twitter is the best place to do that. I am at KOTWN_pod.
And I am at Pirate Ghost Host.
Absolutely, yes. We share all sorts of thoughts on there, some related to the podcast, some related to other things. But you can also reach us through email at kingofthewhatpod@gmail.com, or you can also find us on Patreon. We would love some subscribers or supporters, whatever the technical term is. Patrons. So fancy and grown up. And you can find that at patreon.com/kingofthewhatpod. You can find all sorts of things like bonus episodes, and you get to see the full cold open candidates, not just the ones that make it into the episode. Maybe someday if I learn to draw, I'll put stuff up there. We're always looking for suggestions and feedback. And speaking of which,
please take a moment to rate and review our podcast wherever you get us from. So iTunes, Spotify, Scrivener, that's for writing. But wherever you listen to our podcast, take a moment to leave a review. It helps other people find us. We are so grateful to all of our listeners, and we couldn't do this without you.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is super powerful, so if you have a friend who likes One Piece and they haven't heard of us, just direct them to the latest episode. And if they hate us, they can tell us why. And if there's an actionable item, we'll try to please you. That's how this works. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.